Hi everyone on DynamicsCon. Today we're going to present you what all you can do with alerts. I hope that you see and hear us well. Please post your questions during and after the session in a chat window. Afterwards, you can send us a Teams message or reach us with email. So let's start. I'm Miha and I'm a software architect at Docentric.
And my name is Goran Arsovski, and I'm a solution architect at Docentric.
We are specialized in providing technology to enhance document report customization and document output management in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Beside that, we also fill other gaps in finance and operations, and alerts are one of them.
All right, so alerts, or more general notifications, can help you to be informed about important events. This includes any creation, updates, or deletion of records, or you can also set up time-based alerts for near and past due events. The notifications that are generated by the alerts can then be sent either to you, your team, some external partners, or other applications. This can be achieved using email notifications or business events.
As I remember, alerts are not something new.
You are correct, Miha. So alerts are present from earlier versions of Axapta, and they were pretty popular in AX 2009 and AX 2012. But when the new version of AX came out, which was AX 7, now more known as D365 for finance and operation, this feature was missing, and it was one of the most requested ideas on the ideas portal. So Microsoft listened to this, and back in 2018, they implemented the feature, and in 2019, they also added email notifications. However, even then, it still felt like a mix of some old code and some new code, and it never really functioned properly. So we took this as an opportunity that we can somehow improve on this feature and add some twist to it. So let's have a look at standard features of the alerts in D365. So there are two types of alerts that we can define. The first type is the change-based alerts. And as mentioned, this can be defined either on a field, or they can be defined on the creation of new records or deleted records. The second type are the due date alerts. And this can be defined in a specific time frame or when a date is past or near due. Very important thing to mention is that the alerts can only be defined on the form's main data source. So those are the main data sources and their reference data sources as well. This means that if you would like to define some alerts on the lines on a given form, then you would have to use the systable browser trick, which means that you would have to open the systable browser for that particular table and define the alert from there. After the alert is defined, you will get an alert notification. But if you would also like to receive additional notification, you can define those as email notifications or through business events.
With customizations, we have simplified the creation of field-based alert rules. We have shown the user some missing data and also the query. You can copy the rule and change it, including the query. Then rich dynamic email notifications. You can notify more users with just one rule and get one summary email for several notifications.
So that was the general overview of the alerts features in D365. So now let's fly over to the demo and have a look. As we mentioned before, the alerts are available for most of the forms in D365. And for this particular test, we're gonna show how they're defined on the purchase order table. If you go to the purchase order list page, in the options menu, you can see that we have two menu items. The first one is the one that you use for creating a custom alert, while the second one you can use for an overview of the created alerts and doing updates on the alerts. Well, let's try and create a custom alert. As we can see, now we have an additional dial window that has opened, and we have a couple of sections that we can configure. In the first part, we can see that we already have a new alert rule created, and it's going to be created for the purchase orders table. This can be selected from the table names. And as mentioned before, these are the main data sources given on the form. So we want to create a new event for the purchase order. And to the right, you can select what type of event are we going to track. This can be either that the record has been created or a record has been deleted. However, if we select a particular field, for example, counting date, you can see that we have multiple additional events. For our demonstration, yes?
Goran, how can we make an alert rule for all the fields? A change-based alert rule for all the fields?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you want to enable an alert rule for any change on a record, then you're going to set up the field to be on the modified date and time field. For you to be able to select that field in this list, you first need to add it to the grid. So in this case, in the purchase orders grid, and then you have it available over here.
Oh, thank you.
Sure. So let's continue. So for this example, we're just going to select the all fields and the record has been created. Then we can select if this alert rule is going to be just for the current legal entity or we want to use it for all of the legal entities. And we can set up an end date for the alert. In this case, we're going to leave it to no end date. And now we go to the next section where we define the information that's going to be shown in the alert notification. The first is the subject. And the next one is the message that's going to be shown when a new record is created. So you can put something like a new purchase order has been created. And this is going to be received by the user defined to the right. We can also define another user group that will receive the notification. And this is going to be just for the alert notifications set up in the action pane. If you like to receive additional notifications over email, then we need to enable the send email option as well and define the email recipients. Okay, so now we created the alert rule. If you go to a particular purchase order, and if you try to create an alert rule from there, we can see that we have the same data sources over here. But for different types of records, you can see potentially additional data sources over here. Okay, so let's switch on to the sales orders. And let's try to define some additional rules. Let's say that, for example, we only want to create an alert rule for a specific filter. Let's say that we want to create a rule for user account US 001. So we now have a filter applied on the form, and we do the same thing, create a custom alert. Okay, and we can define a message saying that a new sales order has been created for customer US 001. We leave everything else by default, and we enable sending of emails. Click on OK, so now we have a new alert. And to test this out, we're going to create two new sales orders. So one for US 001 and one for a different user account, 001. Click on OK. And we'll create a second one for US 002. All right. So by creating these records, we already have the notifications, but we still cannot see them in the action pane. That's because we also need to activate the batch job that processes these alerts. And we can access that if we search for alert. And we have the change-based alerts. This is the typical batch job screen, so we can set up the recurrence on every couple of minutes. But for our testing purposes, we also have this option enabled, which will just process the notifications directly. Click on OK. And as we can see, we have one new notification, even though we created two records, because this was specified just for US 001. All right, so now let's show us another example. Let's say that we want to track a change on a particular field. So let's filter by the status. Apply. Let's take this order. And if we go to the header, for example, to the delivery terms, we can see that we have the delivery terms field. and we can define a new alert from here. So if we right click, personalize, and then we have the create alert button. This is something that we added and that speeds up the process of creating alerts. And as we can see, let's wait for the dial window to pop up. You already have the data source selected and the field as well. We can add another message stating something like the delivery terms have been changed for this particular order. Enable the sending of emails, and we click on OK. So the alert is already created, and we can test this out by changing the delivery terms. Okay, let's click on Save. And let's also change the delivery terms for a different order. Okay, save that one as well. All right. After we have the alert created, we can now test out the delivery terms functionality, and we can do that by changing it to something different. Change it to EXV. We save the record. And we also do a second change on 00715, just as a test. Let's change it to FOB. Click Save. And then we run again the batch job to process the notifications. All right, and as we can see, we now have the new notification as well. So if you want to see some more information about the notifications, you can click on the CO button, and then you will get this type of information in this form.
As I remember, Goran, in all AX times, this form show more data.
Yes, that's true. And that form is still accessible in D365, except not through the menus. But you can access it if you just type in the event under Teambox form. And now we can see the legacy form. And over here, we have some more information in the general tab, which tells you for which field the alert was created and which field has changed and the previous and the current values. Except we have a small issue over here, and that is with the go to origin, which is still not working because it's the legacy form. So we did a small change and created a form of our own, which I'm just going to show you right now. And as you can see, we now have the link to the origin record. And if you click on that, we get taken straight to the original record that started the alert. Okay, so let's have an overview of the rules. This is a pretty interesting form because it contains all the hours that are defined in the system.
Goran, can you show us also the emails that you have received?
Yes, of course. So if we go to SMT4 dev, so this is the local server, SMTP server that we're using for this testing. And we can have a look at the emails that we've received. And this would look something like this. You would also have a link to access the record directly.
Great.
Cool. So if we go to the hours, these are all the hours that are defined in the system as mentioned. And here we have our records that are defined.
So it shows the alerts for all users.
Yes, that is correct for all the users in the system. Great. And we can see that we have a lot of additional information in this form. For example, we have the information that we defined on the dialog. And these are some additional fields that we added, like the query as well. And from here, we can see, for example, which table triggered the query, what type of event was it? Is it a create, update, or delete? And also the condition. And this condition tells us if the the alert is active for all the records, for some particular records, or if it's a custom alert. So we can see that we have an overview of the query over here, but this is not very user-friendly. So we added an additional feature, which is edit query on top. And this enables you to have an overview of what the query is built from, and you can also modify it and save the changes. If, for example, you want to create the same alert, but you just want to change something, we also added a copy feature, which creates a copy of the alert. And then you can do whatever you want to change on that same alert.
I've seen that some alerts have custom condition and they don't have a user ID field. How you can make it?
Yes, so these custom alerts are only created through code, and only the system can create those. So if an alert is created by a user, it's going to have a user ID.
Okay, let's continue with the second part of the demo. We have seen change-based alerts and some basics. Now we will go to due date alerts and some more advanced stuff. So let's go to the sales order, and let's say that we want to be notified about sales orders that will be shipped tomorrow. Here we have a requested ship date, and let's make an alert rule based on it. So we have seen what you can define for a normal field. For date-based fields, you have additional options. You can say, you can trigger the notification if the date has been postponed, if it's due today, if it's due in a certain numbers of days, and so on. We will change, we will set the rule if it's due tomorrow, but you can also select different time ranges. Okay, and beside ourselves, so okay, let's make some message first. Beside ourselves, we would also like to notify some additional people, sales team in our case, and all these people will get a notification in an action pane, and we also want to send them an email. We will use an improved email, and let's say based on the template, so we can select which template we want to use. And let's take a look how this template looks. So this is the template that we have made, and we can even customize it and put some dynamic data inside. Let's say that's, for example, a worker name. This can be the data related to the object that has triggered the alert, or to some general data like worker. You can even put a worker image inside. Okay, that's actually an HTML behind. Okay, and we are back on our create alerts. So, and we would like to notify sales demo, and beside that, we also would like to notify all the users from sales team. For that, we will use a so-called placeholder that is replaced in runtime with the email addresses of sales team members. Okay, we can send this email notification synchronously or with email processing. Email processing means that the emails will be put in the outgoing email queue. And you can even see them on a batch email sending status forum. If the email sending will fail, you can resend them. You can even download them, open them, change some recipients, and so on. Okay, let's do it. What I've done, there's a dot at the end. Oh, it's not okay. Looks like I missed. have mistypes. Good. Now let's go and change the date. We'll change this date to today. Save it. Good. And let's go to some other order and change it to tomorrow. Okay. So as you will see, we will get notifications only for the order that will have this. It will be due exactly tomorrow, not today, even though it is a kind of over the limit. Okay. Now let's run the alert processing job that we already know. But that time not change-based alerts, but due date alerts. Normally this job is scheduled to run every day, maybe a few times a day. Okay, we have received an email with all the people that we have specified. These are the sales team group members, and if we click on any on this link, it will lead you, for example, to the alert rule in that case. Good. Let's go on. So these were the due dates alerts. Let's go to one order. And let's try to do some rule based on a, okay, let's clear. Let's try to do some rule based on changes on a sales line, not on a sales header. So with standard, you cannot select a sales line on a list of tables. With our customization, you actually can, but it will mean that we will create an alert rule that will run just for sales lines or this order. So for order 783. If that is what you want, that's perfectly fine. But in most cases, you would like to filter to be notified about the changes on all sales line, on all sales order that fulfill certain condition. And for that, we have to use a trick. We will use a systable browser form. That's a standard form that you can use to directly access the data, if you have sufficient privileges, of course. And we will directly access sales line. This is the list of sales order lines. The form is a bit slow because there are so many data behind. And first, we have now to filter these lines. Okay, our use cases, we want to be notified about the changes of quantity on lines for stopped orders. So we first have to filter these lines so that we will get only the lines for stopped orders. Okay, so we have to add with the additional join data source from order lines to sales order. I've already done it before to save some time. And then here, the ranges. Come on, wake up. We will edit the range so that sales order should have do not process flag enabled. And when we apply this filter, we will only get a small subset of lines that fulfill this condition. Okay, here we see just two. And now we can create a rule. Let's select the right field. it's called sales quantity. And okay. And that's it. That's fine. Okay, let's just make some text for the message. Okay, and let's say that by any reason we have selected a different user, Goran, for example. Now, save this rule and go back to our sales orders, and let's do some change on this order that's not stopped. Now go and find some stopped order. These are typically the yellow ones. And we'll make some change here as well. And now let's process it. Let's see. Okay, these are some old notifications. Let's process it again. Nothing happens. Nothing happens because that was an alert rule for Goran. So let's do a trick and go to Goran's dashboard and click it here. Oh, he has actually received this alert rule. But maybe it was by mistake. Maybe it's not what you really wanted. And we can go and here and change it back to admin. Okay. So from that point on, admin will receive the notifications for that rule. Good. Now let's do some examples with purchase orders. Let's load it. Good. Let's create a simple rule to get the new purchase orders, but we do not want to be spammed to receive an email or for every new purchase order, but we want to have some kind of a summary email. And to achieve that, we will enable just this flag, including summary email. We will not include send emails, even though we could use that in parallel. But we will still specify the recipient because beyond ourselves, we also want to notify the sales team. Okay, maybe not the best case because it's a purchase order, but it's clear. Good. And okay, let's go to manage my alerts. And let's say that we also want that alert rule to be also included in summary email. Good. And that's it. Now let's create some data. So we'll create a few new alert purchase orders. Let's say that we create one more. Good. Now let's process it. So first we have to run a change-based alert job that typically runs every minute. Then afterwards, we also have to run send alert summary email job that typically runs once a day or maybe a few times a day. That will collect all the notifications that were marked to be included in the summary emails, also all the ones that were already sent, and send the emails to all intended recipients. Okay, it still works. It's just the problem of SMTP for this fake SMTP server that allows us to catch the emails for all the recipients and see them. That's very convenient for them. That's why we use it. Okay, so what I wanted to show is, so the user Miha has received that list of events. Some other user has received a different subset of events. So everyone receives the summary that is made just for him or her. Okay, good. Let's go. Let's close this and let's go on. And now let's go to the integrations. So when we create a new event, a new alert rule that we want to use for integrations. So we actually want to notify some either external application, internal or external, on to start or trigger some process that will do whatever we want to do. We mark here the send externally flag. It means that the business event will be sent, and the business event will be sent just if that's enabled. But first, take a look what the business events actually are. Let's clear that. Okay. Here we see a list of business events on the system. And business events are actually well-defined data structures. For alerts, we have one for the change-based alerts and one for the due date alerts. And first, we have to activate them. Without them, nothing will happen when the event notification will be thrown. The activation is always in scope of one legal entity. And here we also select the endpoint. So to where this data package that's called business event should be sent. I've already created an endpoint for our Azure Storage account container. Okay, and that's it. Now, let's take a look at our Azure Storage account container. So far, it's empty. But now let's go. And we have done, I guess, for the sales order, if I remember. Yeah, that was for the sales order. Okay. Now let's create one sales order. Good. Now let's go and process these changes. And in a few seconds, the business event will reach the target endpoint. If we take a look at it, what it actually is, it's a JSON structure that contains the data about the business events, including the email addresses, the direct link to the entity, the sales order in our case, contains the message, and all the things that we have seen in the emails and other fields. Okay, good. So from that point on, we can do many things. But for the demo, I've developed a simple logic app that pulls this business event and send the event and send the Teams message. So so when a blob is added to the container, it's downloaded, parsed, and posted in a Teams channel. So far, so good. And typically, it runs the blob container is pulled every minute or on a short frequency, but for demo, we will trigger it manually. Good. Okay, it's still okay. It's processed, And if we go here, we see that we have received a new Teams message. And even if we click here, we will reach this order. So that was a simple integration. Even with logic apps, we can use many other connectors. Some are, for example, you can use Azure Communication Services to send SMS. You can use Finance and Operations connector to connect back to the FNO to trigger some other action or to get more data to do some more advanced business logic. You can also contact some external business applications or internal business applications, or sky's the limit. So let's summarize what we have seen. We have seen change-based alerts and due-based alerts. We have seen how to filter records and to apply the alert on a filtered data set. We have seen sys-table tricks for lines and subgrids, Action Center, notification list, the legacy forum, the standard emails. We have seen business events for integration. And when you need to know more about the changes, check the database log for the details. Then from customization, we have seen how to simpler alert rule creation, better overview, how to copy rule, edit query, and do other kinds of modifications. Rich dynamic email templates with placeholders that you can use to create rich, appealing emails. How to notify additional users with just one rule, and how to include multiple notifications in one summary email. And when you have more complex scenarios, you can use our API to achieve that. Some of the features that you have seen are already a part of the Centric free edition. That's a free tool that you can download and use it, a free add-on, or others will be there in next releases. But these are all small customizations, so you can also ask your developers to do it.
All right. Thank you, Miha. So that was all for today. And now it's time for an open discussion or any questions that you might have. Right. So I hope you know at least a couple of tricks that can help you or your customers when you're using the Alerts functionality. So now we'll go through some of the questions from the chat. And I think the first question was from Bobby. So Bobby is asking if any user can create the alerts. And is there any security or permissions required for this?
Yes. Hi, everyone. First, I think that actually, typically every user can create an alert. It probably could be possible to block it, but it actually doesn't make much sense, because the idea is that if a user can see the data, then the user can also be notified about the changes. So if the user cannot see the forum, then he cannot create an alert rule on this forum. If the user cannot see a certain field on a grid or on a forum in general, then the user cannot create an alert rule for this field. I haven't tested with security policies, so a security policy can filter the record so that the user can see just a subset of these records. I haven't tested it, but I guess that the system should not trigger the alerts for the records that the user cannot see. So this is the general answer. I guess the security is well covered for the alerts.
Okay. So the next question is, in the email message, can we put any dynamic content like the purchase order number? And the answer to this is yes. So you can put additional dynamic content by either using placeholders or assigning some of the existing fields.
Yeah, I can show a little bit. I would ask the editor to show the to share my screen. So yeah, if we go here to okay, let's. use this tab. If we go here to organizational email templates, here we have added a customization. So here you choose, it's called an email template, an email template handler class that actually implements the placeholders. So for the standard alerts, we have alert-specific placeholders and a general placeholders that actually are always applicable, like company, user, and so on. But if you would like to use something purchase order specific, then you have to use different class that implements the purchase order placeholders. So some of the classes are already available, others can be developed. So it's all open.
All right. All right. So we have another question. Gabriel is asking if you can create an alert for line amounts greater than a certain amount, for example, 100K.
Actually, yes, we have shown that later in the demo. So if you actually, what's wrong with this order? So using, I don't know what's going on with this form, but actually, okay, if you want to make an alert rule on a line amount, then you should use this sys-stable browser trick. Sys-stable browser form can only be opened by the administrator, and okay, let's repeat it. Okay, so if we're going to the amount, good. So when you create a rule, you can select this field and the condition greater than. So,
and this is part of the standard functionality for the alerts.
Yeah.
So,
okay, let's continue. Okay, now we.
Yeah, it seems the environment is a bit slow today.
Yeah, it's not warmed up. Line amount, and then you have here. No, here's. Okay, you're right. I thought you can use the condition, but actually you cannot. So yeah, that was a good question. Actually, what you could do, you could create a filter for all the lines. Okay. Let's do it like this. Okay, order lines and well, okay, we won't spend. So you could make a filter on line amount to filter only the records with a value greater than some threshold, and afterwards I would create an alert rule based on a modified date time field. So whatever the record that applies to filter would be changed, then you would get or actually you can even when the line amount would be changed, the alert would be triggered. That's some kind of a workaround that's possible.
All right. And we had a couple of questions regarding performance. How does this functionality actually affect the performance? Does it cause the system to slow down a bit?
Actually, it uses the existing database lock framework. So all the relevant changes are written. So whenever any changes happen in the database triggers are triggered. So even if you do not have an alert rules, and if you do have an alert rules, then these changes are written in a special event create, update, delete table. And that's it from the runtime perspective, from the real-time perspective. So then you have these alert processing batch jobs that afterwards process these event create, update, delete table, and throw and send the notifications where applicable. So actually, the performance impact on the system is quite negligible if you do not make some excessive scenarios. So.
All right. And
of course, if you would send millions, if you would like to send millions of emails or create millions of notifications, that would take time. But if you are more reasonable scopes, then you would not.
Just normal usage of the system shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, you always have to have a little bit of common sense. What's still useful from the receiver aspect. So you should not exaggerate with the amount of the alerts. So.
And I think we only have time for one more question. So Enrique is actually asking if what happens if we define an alert by a particular user and the user leaves the company. Are the alerts still active? But what should we do about the alerts?
Actually, the alerts are normally linked per user. So if the user is still in the system, I guess the alerts will still work. If the user is deleted from the system, I guess the alerts rules will also be deleted. But we have created here also the copy functionality. So actually, if you go to alerts, to that form that shows the alert rules for all users, and then filter them, and you can either copy or you can change it, the user ID.
All right. Okay, so that was it from this session. So for any more ideas or questions that you might have, you can reach us at our booth, where we have actually some really cool presents for those that fill out the survey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I hope that you find something useful for you. So thanks for watching and enjoy the conference.
Yep. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.